of you guys are doing different things. We have a wide mix of guys involved here from wide places around the world, country. And actually, we're just now starting this group. So every week we're hoping to get more and more guys coming in. And I realize the time might be a little better for the East Coast guys, but we want to make it work for all as much as we can. And then my buddy Rex Tigner with Man Up Ministries. I want to say you're in Virginia, Rex, right?
I am, yes.
And he really is the backbone of Iron Sharpens Iron on the East Coast. He really is a heavy lifter for that organization. He's a good friend of mine. And so I've just asked Rex to come and work with me when we do these meetings with you guys, and just we're taking surveys. So if you have any questions, we've got like 10 or 12 topics that you guys have said you want to cover, and it can be anything dealing with men's ministry. If you have a question, just text it to the group chat at the very bottom of your screen. You can just either send me a personal message or ask a question. We'll add that to our survey, and our goal is just to keep answering questions every week. And so I'm going to unleash Rex on you. He's got some great training he does through his ministry. And so I'm just releasing him on you guys. And so let me pray for our time together. I'm going to be here learning just like you guys are. So Lord, bless this time. Thank you for these men who are on this call from all over, from Virginia to Alabama, all around, God. And we just thank you for this time. Pray that you'd help us to learn and equip us for your ministry. Pray your blessings upon Rex as well as he teaches us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, Rex, let her have it, baby.
All right. Hey, did y'all get the handout from Dale?
I got it.
Okay, good. What we're going to do is we're going to incorporate your questions that have been coming in into this as we go. But the handout that you have is a training that we normally do in about 4 to 5 hours. So we'll take one at a time. Some weeks we might get 2, but today let's start off with, I have a very simple question. When you hear the words men's ministry, what comes to your mind? This is always interesting. What comes to your mind when you hear the words men's ministry?
Well, I'll start, but mine has changed through the years. Last 12 years, it's really changed. Before, I would just looked at it as another thing churches do, and that's about no more, no less than that. And now, for me, men's ministry is more pinpointed to just reaching men, just broken men. That's where my passion's at. Broken, hard, rough, angry, ugly men. And so it's more pinpointed now.
So when you hear the words men's ministry, what comes to mind?
So for me, it's probably relationships is the most important word.
Relationships.
Building relationships, not just with broken guys, but with men especially with men with vision and passion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll speak up there. I'd say it's what Jesus did. He grabbed a bunch of ragtag, who knows what all fishermen, we know what all fishermen and everything else, rough cut. Some of them were this, some of them were that, but he knew what he wanted, and he saw something that they didn't see they had. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think about a men's ministry, is when you see something that the other guy doesn't see and you're able to bring them up. That's what I think of men's ministry.
Anybody else?
Could I follow up on that? I think that's a great answer. And I think another word that goes with that is empowering. Mm-hmm. Men's ministry is meant to empower men to do what the Holy Spirit's leading them to do.
Right. You know, it's funny, when most men hear the word men's ministry, they think of a pancake breakfast.
Mm-hmm. That's what I used to think.
It's really, I mean, most men, when they hear the words men's ministry inside of their church, the thing they immediately connect to is, when are we going to do breakfast? Mm-hmm. And breakfast will not sustain your men's ministry. I love your answers. Your answers are just, I mean, awesome, right on. Like I said last week, my definition of a men's ministry is simply one man walking with another and another and another and another. Amen. That's what a men's ministry to me is. So today, the very first thing that we want to talk about is a men's ministry has a leader, a leadership team, clear roles, and clear goals. Okay?
One more time, please.
A leadership, it has a leader, a leadership team with clear roles and clear goals. All right, we're going to look at each one of these, okay? So as a leader, so many churches that I go into, they have a men's ministry leader that should be leading women's ministry.
Amen. That's right.
I don't mean that in any harm, any way, but they have no heart for men's ministry, okay?
They have backbone.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy when you hear he said, well, you know, they needed somebody, I stepped in, but my heart is over here, you know. So find a guy, maybe you're that guy, I don't know, you know, I don't know what your role in your church is, but maybe you're the catalyst to start something, to find the right guy to take over the leadership part of it. Okay, you need that leader that is a servant, because I'm gonna tell you what, if he don't serve, he'll never lead. Okay, so make sure that your leader, make sure that leader has a heart for men's ministry. The next thing is leadership team. Too many men's ministries die because they're led by one.
Mm-hmm.
He cannot do everything. You know, he's not gifted to do everything. But there are guys in your churches that have different giftings. All right. I tell everybody, when you first start, you need 4 men on your leadership team. You need an event guy, a breakfast guy, and a group guy. And I want to add one, okay, is an administrative guy. You need that guy that will send emails, that will keep men informed about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that guy is invaluable to you.
Right.
He's invaluable to men's ministry, to in that church. You know, he's a guy that can find a good daily devotional and send it where these guys are getting and have an opportunity to get it daily. You know, most men, they don't read their Bible. They don't even crack it open. But if you can find a way as a men's ministry leader and a team to put something in front of them that is good, you have a chance at least getting that into them over a course of the day. All right. So any questions so far? I'm going to break each one of these team guys down here in a minute. But do we have any questions or anything so far?
I'm glad you had mentioned administration guy.
Yes.
When I was youth pastor, again, many years ago, I had this guy on my team that he was my detail guy, and I needed him because I'm not. I'm a let's get up and go. Now I may have to do it 2 or 3 times because I'm going to goof it up, but I'm a doer, and I needed him so bad, but he needed me too, because detail guys don't have very good vision, and so we really it was good for both of us.
I see Jim and Dale laughing. Did y'all catch that? I won't go throw them under the bus, but I sense that both of them were laughing. You know,
I don't know what you're talking about.
And Jim's saying, that's my story, and he's sticking to it.
Jim said,
Had some vision.
Well, one time him and 2 of my staff thought it'd be funny to rearrange all the keys on my keyboard. And so I went in there in the office and I was typing a devotional thing, and everything was underlined red.
Oh no.
Heck, did it again, same, did it again, same. I walk out of my office and say, I need you guys to come in and pray for me. What's going on? I said, I think something's wrong. That was the first day I learned about home row. I'm like, what are those 2 dots? Anyway.
Yeah. I'd have
So
bought another computer.
There's my story.
I'm just sorry they didn't YouTube it.
Yeah, they would have if it was so long ago.
Yeah. All right, so let's break it down. You need a an event guy. Remember last week I said do less, but do it with excellence. Sometimes we need to clear things because guys are pulled on in so many different directions. They've got life pressure, they're pulled on, they've got so much going on. And sometimes you need to pull back some of the events, but you need to do them with excellence. I mean, they have got to be done very, very well. Okay. So his role is to coordinate the events, whether you do 2 a year. I like to say, with the event guy, there's a guy that's probably been to an Iron Sharpens Iron conference. If you have them in your area, find a guy that loves the conference that will take the lead in the conferences. Signing people up, doing the different things. I know Jim is doing one, was going to do one this year. I know he's going to do one next year, I think. Hopefully he'll do 2, but we haven't discussed that yet. But
Yeah.
Hopefully he's still got our money, so.
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We shouldn't have your money. Do we have your money?
Well, he said to leave it for next year or not.
Did you pay?
Yeah.
So, wow, that's a problem. I haven't heard anything about money. Have you, Dale?
Not a problem. They're ready for next year.
Okay, there you go. I don't know the details.
Dude,
I'm not sweating. You just got to deal with my wife, so it don't matter to me.
wait, your money, I'll send it to you.
Rex, didn't you say you need a detail guy?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, baby.
I was just going to kind of go right on over that.
Yeah.
So the event guy, it's his responsibility to get with the leadership team and the leaders and look at a calendar. Every men's ministry leader, we're going to talk about this later, but every men's ministry needs to have a calendar where you're not jumbling everything up together. Okay. Mm-hmm. Keep it spread out. Do things, do them well, do them with excellence. And then you have a breakfast guy. This is a guy that just loves to cook breakfast, okay? He just loves to do it. And then you have a group guy. This is a guy that will look for curriculum, that will look for things, that understands the dynamic and the power of men's groups. I said last week, most of you can name 6 guys to carry your casket, but finding that guy at 2 a.m. in the morning, some of it's a little rough for a lot of these guys. Okay, so he needs that group guy. Now, each one of these guys' role is to build his own team underneath of him. Okay, so if it takes 3 guys to pull an event off, then he needs this event guy needs to find 3 other guys to pull this event off. Breakfast, if it takes 6 guys to pull a breakfast off, he needs to build his team. So what we're doing is the leadership team has a team, and now each guy on the leadership team is building his team. All right, it's the dynamic of it. And the group guy, however many it takes for him to do the group. Clear roles. Everybody needs to know what their role is. Okay, if this guy's doing the events, he needs to have clear roles. Doing breakfasts, clear roles. Groups, clear roles. Everybody has clear roles. And then now here comes the hard part, okay? Clear goals. Mm-hmm. What is your goal for your men's ministry? I love to ask men's ministry leaders, why? Mm-hmm. What's your why? What is your why of having a ministry to men inside of your church? What is your why? Until you understand your why, you will never be able to develop a plan and a process to be able to reach your God. All right, everybody good so far?
Hey,
I got a question about the whys. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, go ahead, John. You can go first.
Well, I was going to say, how do you define your whys as a group? And the reason I'm asking that is because passion, what God has laid on my heart, will be different. And so I will have a tendency, mine's evangelism, period, to deal with church guys. I have a really difficult time. I got to really force myself to do that. So how do you do goals, define goals when it's, with the passions too?
I'm glad you asked, because your goals of your church, of your men's ministry, should come under the goals of your overarching church.
Uh,
So if your church is this, then what you are is like us. I mean, ours is to grow men and grow in devotion to Christ, however that looks. Okay. So we do it through groups. We do it through evangelism. We do it through coffee. We do it through whatever means and methods that we can do it to get men together. Okay. So, with the best part about having a team is everybody is allowed to use their own giftings.
mhm.
That's the best part.
Absolutely.
Not every guy is gifted in evangelism. There will be a time where you can be able to help other guys understand how to do evangelism simply. Most guys, when they hear the word evangelism, they think of some guy walking up to them and shoving a tract down their throat. I mean, waitresses, they say waitresses hate Sundays because the Christians come. They're lousy tippers and they all leave them a tract.
Yeah.
I teach my guys, man, when we do a breakfast, I tell everybody, whatever breakfast costs you, you tip that much or better. Okay. We're here to bless her, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. Okay. Can every guy do that? No, but he can leave more than the leftover change from his meal. Okay.
Hey, Rex.
Yes.
So when you're talking about your communications guy, your leader guy, your event guy, your groups guy, and your breakfast guy,
Mhm.
how do you? So Kevin and I go to the same church, and I'm the lay leader over the men's ministry. He's one of the group leaders.
Mhm.
How do you spread those out? So for example, we have basically 4 events.
Mhm.
But we don't really do a breakfast. So if we're going to mesh a breakfast, we do 1 breakfast a year. If we mesh that in, do you do a every other month breakfast? I mean, how do you mesh that in without creating too many events for the guys? Or do you create how many? I mean, what's your event to breakfast ratio?
So typically what we do up in the New England area and everything else, New England is very prevalent with Iron Sharpens Iron conferences. They're everywhere up there. Okay. So we have a little bit more of an advantage. So we suggest that you get a group of guys to go to an Iron Sharpens Iron in the spring, and you have a retreat or an event in the fall. And then you fill in with a breakfast, you fill in with simulcast, you fill in with a couple other little things. All right. So on the months that you're doing the event, you don't do a breakfast. That's why you need a calendar. Okay.
So you're talking. So I'm just trying to understand. So if you're doing a breakfast and an event,
Mhm.
basically what I hear you say is do 1 a month max. So if you do a
Yes.
breakfast, don't do well, we have Iron Sharpens Iron, which is a 1-day event.
Yep.
We do a men's retreat, which is a 2-day event, 3-day event. So you're saying just once a month? Is that what most guys are doing? You see is once a month throughout the year?
Most of them are trying to do something every month with the exception of December.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. That's I appreciate that clarification.
And let me back up too, is every January. Okay. This is amazing. Every January, I suggest you do a breakfast. You invite your pastor and you allow your pastor to do the State of the Union for men in that church. All right. Now hear me. You might have a pastor that doesn't care about the men in your church. But when you approach him and say, Pastor, we've got to build men up in our church. Okay. And you're the key to it. You're the catalyst to this thing. All right. I need you to do a breakfast for me in January. We're going to call it the State of Men of your church. And you give him 30 minutes and you let him talk. It's amazing. It is the most attended breakfast we have because guys want to hear from him. But we didn't have a pastor when we started out doing this that really understood that dynamic. But all of a sudden, he caught that dynamic.
Mm.
Okay, so don't get frustrated if he says no the first year. Find another influential guy, bring him in there, and let him cast a vision of men.
Do you invite him every year, Rex, to do that?
Every year.
Well, I'm kind of intrigued by that, because I'll tell you, we do an event at my church. We've done it for 4 years straight now. It's not a breakfast; it's a shrimp boil that we do every January, just like you're talking right there. It's a shrimp boil, and usually I will speak or I'll invite another speaker every year. I spoke the first year, I invited a speaker, then I spoke 1 year, and then this year we invited a speaker. But it's attended by anywhere from 80 to 100 men church every year. And I like this. I like this that you just said. I'd really like to do that, and maybe incorporate my pastor at that every year. Would you say that's like the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just give him a place to cast the vision. I mean, it's, guys, this is what we as a church are building for this year. And this is where we see you as men in the church. This is where we see your role. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it is so well attended. It's crazy because guys want to hear from the pastor.
Well, see, that's the way this event is at our church. It's probably the most attended event we have every year for men at our church. And we do, like you said, we have breakfast, and then we'll have a men's night a couple of times a year. Also, like we'll have a BYOB. Anybody do that? We call bring your own beef.
Yep.
And everyone grills their own steak. And then we have a speaker at that too, but we do several things like that. But that shrimp boil, it's the most attended event. But I was kind of going off one thing you said last week, that one of the things I try to do is the pastors in our church, in the past, I've tried to keep them out of some of that stuff so that they could be the men at the men event. Remember you said that last week?
Yep. This is one time where he is not. He comes in as the pastor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Thanks.
Yeah. So here's the other thing. Here's the other thing on your men's ministry leadership team. Term limits. If not, you're going to end up like Congress. Sorry. Give guys an opportunity. Let them know this is not a death sentence. Okay? Give them, look, if you'll serve for 2 years, what would be the most awesome picture, and this is the picture that you as a leader needs to instill into the leadership team, is in 2 years, you need to have your replacement ready. Okay? You roll off of the lead, and you can go back to serve if you want to, you can roll off. But you've got a guy here that's ready to step up. The problem we have is that nobody duplicates themselves any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So when person A leaves, there is no B, and it dies.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Really good.
So term limits, I set it 2 years, 3 years, whatever works for you. I'm not in your church. I don't know how many each of you have, So let guys know that serving on this team, there comes a time where you really can get off. Okay. So, and now I want to give you what your team should look like. There are 5 things of what your team should look like. The first one is relational. You and your leadership team need to build relationships with each other. After all, they know what you want your guys in your church to do. Okay? They need to be authentic. They need to be real. If they're real with each other, other men will become real. Mm-hmm. They need to be intentional. Oh my gosh. Be intentional. Be intentional about what you do. Guys, I want to give you permission to say yes to what you need to say yes to and know what you need to say no to. And some of you are so busy, you don't even know, you don't even know what to do next. Okay? United. That's why you need to clear goals. So you're united in where you are trying to go, where you're trying to grow these guys at. Okay? And then you got to stay focused. Because I can tell you, as a men's ministry leader and a men's ministry leadership team, all kinds of people are going to come up to you with the next big idea and the next great thing. Okay? You got to stay focused on your goals. And if you can do that, the men's ministry can see where men's ministry is going. Men in the church can see where men's ministry is going, and they see a bunch of guys that are leading well. That's what we need in our church. We need men's ministry guys that lead well. Okay? So anything on that part? Everybody good? The next one, I'm going to blow your mind. Okay? Remember we talked about pastors last week? Men's ministry is pastor supported. Okay? I was in a church one time and I was with the pastor, and the pastor, we were leaving his office, service was getting ready to start. And this person stopped the pastor and myself on the way in and said, "Pastor, there's no toilet paper in the ladies' restroom." Okay? You know, me being the fine, young, upstanding guy that I am, I said, "Go get some." You know? All right? You as a men's ministry leadership team, you carry 2 buckets into church every Sunday. You carry one filled with water and one filled with gas. When little things start to happen, you get an opportunity to dump one or the other.
That's good.
Be careful which one you dump in. Okay? Your pastor has got enough stuff on him. You need to be supportive of your pastor. One of the best ways you can support your pastor is to create a pastor prayer team. All right? I get blamed for all kinds of things in our church. All right? I mean, I just do. I mean, when I was really doing a lot with men's ministry, I would get blamed for all kinds of things in our church. So in the office, we put a glass container. It was about that tall. We had our men's group in the conference room. So every Sunday, I told the guys, I want you to bring a nickel. And every Sunday, if you've prayed for that pastor through the week, I want you to put a nickel in that jar. So these guys were coming in and they were putting nickels. All of a sudden, nobody would touch it. It was funny. It was like, you know, you see this jar and you see this jar of nickels, but nobody would move it. It was hilarious. So the jar started getting full. And one day I'm walking down the hall and I hear, "Rex!" You know, and I was like, oh no, I got caught again. So he has this jar and he said, "What's this?" And I said, "Pastor, you've got guys that are praying for you every week." I said, "We call it the nickel defense. You remember in football, when you get inside the 20, they bring in the extra back?" Okay. So what he was doing is he finally realized that he had men praying for him every single week. He took that up on the pulpit and he said, "I never knew this until today." Tears running down his face. And he says, "I've got men that are praying for me weekly." All right. Start a PALS, Pastor Arm Lifters team. You remember in Exodus? They went up to the mountain, the fight was going on. Moses got tired, Aaron and Hur. They held up his arms, they won the battle. Pastors need pastor arm lifters. Create a card, seven things. Get 7 men and give them a card, give them a coin, tell them every day you have give one guy Monday, one guy Tuesday, one guy Wednesday. Monday may pray for the pastor's health. Tuesday may pray for his finances. Thursday may pray for his family. Friday may pray for his time in the Word, that God gives him a word, gives him the fresh word. Develop your own. Your church, your pastor. Create a card, give him a copy of the card and say, Pastor, I've got 7 guys that are praying for you every single day. One of the other ones that you can do is on Iron Sharpens Iron, there's a thing called pastor prayer teams. All churches may not have 31 guys on the team, but 31 guys that'll pray, but you probably have 7, so split the month up. Some of you take 3 days or whatever you need to do. But you fill this thing out, the pastor prayer teams, you insert a guy, and what it does is once this guy prays, he simply sends the pastor a text, says, I have your back today. Guys, I'm going to tell you, when your pastor knows his leadership team, that men's ministry leadership team is praying for him and covering him, you could do anything in that church you want to do. I'm just telling you. It is amazing of what happens when this man knows he's got other men that are praying for him and covering for him. You want support for your men's ministry? Pray for your pastor. Set up a team that prays for your pastor. Set up a team that will cover your pastor's family and himself with prayer. It's amazing, man. Amazing. So any questions on that part of it? And keep your pastor informed. I know Jay says he goes overboard with keeping his pastor informed, but I tell you, pastors like to know what's going on. I had a conference call on Saturday morning with our pastor, and we're doing a man-to-man coaching ministry in our church because this pandemic has just created so many issues. So we have got coaches lined up, and as these pastors are starting to get calls, they're sending guys to the coaches, and the coaches are spending 4 to 6 weeks with these guys, helping them through specific areas of their life. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool setup and a pretty cool tool. They came to me and said, hey, we need something. So I wrote a curriculum for it, and we're using it. So if you want it, let me know. I'll send it to you.
Rex, I would love to get that. That is so great. I called my mentor over here about a week ago. I said, man, I don't know where you're at with this pandemic, but I need you. And I am I don't want to say overwhelmed because I'm not, but I got so many heavy things on me that it just broke me down the other day. And guys in our church, everything from drinking to abuse to totally uncharacteristic things for some of these guys. And,
oh yeah, it's crazy about some of the things that are going on.
Yeah.
You need to be ready, and the pastors.
Divorces I'm dealing with right now that it's just breaking my heart.
And these pastors, they've got enough going on. They're still trying to figure out church now and everything else, and so this is to help take the load off of them. Do the pastors dump them totally? No, but the best thing is I don't know about your church. You probably have perfect guys in your church, but our church, they love to set up meetings to talk.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but they don't want to go anywhere. They just want to talk, because what they do is they say, well, they go home and tell their wife, and I actually had a wife tell me this, is, well, I went and met with Rex. What more do you want me to do? Like, that was supposed to fix everything, But so be careful of the guys that just want to talk. So what's happening is when these pastors, when they send them to us, then when the pastor sets up another meeting with them, the first question they ask, have you met with? And if he says no, he says, well, what are you doing? Meet with them. Once you meet with them, then we'll talk again.
Amen. I like that.
And
so, I told you last week that our church it's hurting so bad. I was just talked to a family this week. They're not coming back. Our church is really hurting, and the more they're hurting, the more our pastor is the feeling of losing control. He's controlling more, and it's just a mess. And I could go on about that, but so it's very difficult for him to know some of this stuff. He don't have a clue,
Right?
Because nobody trusts him. I mean, not nobody. That's not fair. He's being less trusted all the time, and so it's just ugly. It's just pure ugly.
So, do we have any questions? Because I don't want to move on now. I've dropped 2 things on you. So, any questions or anything? We've got 20 minutes left. I can go into unified theme versus clutter events, is what Jim was talking about earlier. But anything? I don't leave any of this undone, because I'm gonna tell you what, guys. These things right here are 2 key tools. 2 key tools.
Hey, I just want to add. So, I've got my whole thing over here for men, but I'm a lay leader in my church of the men's ministry department. And this has been really helpful. I mean, I just now laid out a calendar for next year. just while you're talking, like, wow, breakfast. I mean, I'm only doing 10 instead of 12 events, because we have our July's farming month, and Christmas is in December. But man, that's been really helpful. I already have the team, but to have these guys to implement some of these strategies has been very, very helpful. So thanks.
Good. So anything else before we move on? Because I'm gonna hit this, and then we can pick up on it next week if we don't get it. So the next thing is focus on unified themes versus clutter events. A unified theme versus a bunch of clutter. Okay? Don't do things just to do things.
Right.
Please, don't do things just to fill up a calendar. Every men's ministry needs to have a purpose statement.
Yep.
Okay? Out of that purpose statement, every men's ministry needs to have a jingle. All right?
It doesn't feel right.
Huh?
That doesn't feel right. A jingle?
I'm just saying. When
a man gets it, everyone wins.
Yeah. You got
No,
this.
I felt like we should put it to music.
Yeah, you got this purpose statement. This is that 3 or 4 sentences about what your men's ministry is, but every church needs to have its little jingle, like Building Brothers or Battle Brothers or Iron Sharpens Iron, or whatever that is in your church, whatever that looks like. It needs to have that little thing. It needs to be on every documentation that you send out. It needs to be on everything. So when guys hear the word men's ministry, this thing pops into their head. Like if I say, "Where's the beef?" What do you think of?
Wendy's.
Okay. I'm just, what's the Coke one? The real thing? It's Coke. When you hear this thing, this pops into mind, and you want to do the same thing with the men in your church. So you want to come up with that little catchy thing that you put on the bottom of everything. So if the guys don't get the purpose statement, they get this. Okay. So let me tell you why a purpose statement is, because the first thing is it lets men know where you're headed. If men don't know where you're headed, they don't have a clue why to even be involved. The next thing is it helps you helps you to take on less, so you don't get overwhelmed by it. Okay. It keeps you focused and moving in the right direction. Men, there are so many things that is going to come along that is going to try to take men's ministry places where it was never intended to go. So, be careful with that. And here's the big one is a purpose statement keeps you on track. It keeps your why in front of you all the time. So you never forget your why. You know, if your why is to build godly build godly men, godly husbands, and godly fathers, man, that's your why. It keeps it right here. When something comes along that doesn't line up with how to do that, you can go, nope, this is what we're about. This is what we're doing here as a men's ministry. A simple one is to help men grow in Christ, giving them tools so they can influence their home, their workplace, their church, and their community. You know, I said earlier, develop a calendar. You know, that calendar is going to be key for your men's ministry. The other thing your calendar does is it keeps you from butting heads with things you don't need to butt heads with. It's the ongoings of your churches. Okay, if your church has got this big event in October, you know, trunk or treat or whatever it may be, you do not want to do a men's ministry event on that weekend. Yeah. So be careful, making sure that your calendar and the church's calendar is not bumping heads with each other. You know, we're great at inviting men to things, and once men get there, we're great at telling them you need to be spending more time at home with your family. You need to come to this, and when you get there, man, you really need to be spending more time with your family. That's one of the things where I see Zoom in men's ministry want to become an amazing tool. Guys click on 3 minutes early. When the time hits, they click off and they're gone. Yeah, they walk downstairs. They go wherever they need to go. Yeah, I really see Zoom becoming a big, vital tool. So
one of the things about the calendar you was just talking about, Rex, that I've noticed that I've had to be real flexible. I'm big on making a whole year-long calendar every year, and my pastors don't always do that. They'll pick up stuff every 3 months, and they say, "Well, we got to cancel this thing you had scheduled this weekend, Jay." And I'm just like, "Okay, we'll just go," you know. And I've noticed that being flexible with the calendar too.
yeah,
Whenever I had to come, because I know they're going where God's leading them,
right,
and you got to remember that we're part of that vision.
right. And we have, I mean, our calendar stays. Everybody has to have their things turned in our church in November by November 1st. Okay, and then we're talking about calendar events. Okay, that they don't change. Now, the sermon series, the sermons, whatever, now that changes all the time. But like we have a missions yard sale every year, and the missions yard sale typically raises about $50,000 for local ministries. I mean, they shut the whole church down. Everywhere in the church is yard sale. And it's amazing to see. I mean, it's just mind blowing about what happens during that day. That date doesn't change. Don't you dare plan anything on the front end of it or the back end of it, you know? So that's what most of the churches, you know, the calendar of events, the kids retreat, the other things like that, they're locked in and they pretty much stay. So we've covered 3 things. Any comments? We've got about 15 minutes or so. So I've thrown a lot of information at you, a lot of stuff at you. Next week we'll pick up and go from there.
I would just add one thing. Hey, excellent job, Rex. I stole a ton of your material and one of Penton's events. So I just want to remind you guys also, PK simulcast event is free for churches this year. And that's July 31st, August 1st. That's a great opportunity to have your guys sit at the feet of a great ministry opportunity, and it doesn't cost you a penny. It was going to cost you, but now it's not. And before we do we have any more questions that you would like us to address down the road regarding men's ministry, running a small group, recruiting a small group? Do you have anything that you're working through right now and you need some added coaching?
I want to add to what Jim just said too is because when we get through this, part of this is going to be talking about men's groups. And then once we get to that point, I'm going to hit it, but I have a whole separate thing on the dynamics of a men's group that we'll go back and cover one week. Okay. So I just, and some of you last week, Ed talked about resources. We're going to get to a place in this to where we talk about making the use of the best resources that are available to you. And we'll actually talk about some resources that we have, some that Jim has, and, some different things that we know that is working very well. So, you're going to be getting a lot of information, like Jim said. So.
And you know what, Rex, what I've learned, because at our church, because I'm doing my ministry over here, our church, we've been pretty minimal. We do our small groups with our Men in the Arena small groups, which are meant to multiply, and they've changed the whole church. And then we do 4 events a year. Maybe we'll throw in a breakfast. And just that simple little model has just transformed our church. It's kind of where if you're not in a men's small group, are you even a member? And so it's not hard to transform a church if you're willing to do what Rex is saying. And if you've got a pastor, Robert Lewis, we had him on our podcast last week, and he said the most important thing he's seen to ministry success with men is a pastor who's on board. What do you think about that, Rex? Because it's tough when the pastor's obstinate.
Well, I mean, not every pastor's on board when you first start out, because like we talked about last week, it's gotten dumped in their lap so many times and things like that. Sometimes you have to start an invisible men's ministry before the men's ministry can go visible.
Yeah, that's really a good point. In fact, we had Clint on here from Michigan, and he's kind of in that realm. He's at a mega church, multi-campus, and they have $0, 0 groups, nothing for men.
Yep.
So he's going to have to start an invisible ministry to get that going. So
when you start your invisible ministry too, is start where men already are. Okay. When we started, we had a group that met in a heating and air conditioning building. That's a group I led. I loved that. We had a bunch of guys that would meet and ride motorcycles on Tuesday nights. We had two nights a week where we would meet and we would play 9 holes of golf. And the deal was you couldn't ride with the same guy back-to-back weeks. You had to ride with somebody different every week until we got back to that person. At the end of golf, somebody would bring a case of water or something, and we would sit and do a devotional at the end of golf. Doing the motorcycle rides, they stop halfway. They pull into a convenience store. They all get drinks. They do. And I loved doing the one in the heating and air conditioning building, because I would invite a guy and a guy would go, "Dude, I don't do church." And I go, "Man, that is awesome. I am so glad to hear you don't do church. We don't meet in church. We meet in the heating and air conditioning building."
Yeah, that's good, man.
I just took his excuse. So if you have to build the invisible where men already are doing things. Okay. And then when it goes visible, you will already have these little pockets like Jim was talking about. You'll already have these little pockets that you can just pull in and draw from.
Rex, how do you, in our church, again, we're struggling, but in our church, how do you get the church to see the vision of men's ministry?
They have to see men first.
Well, yeah, and we've been doing that. Like I say, I've been doing the Wild Heart Study for 12 years now, and I'm not tooting my horn. Honest to God, I'm not. But the last 5 years, besides maybe about 4 or 5 people, I'm the only one has warmed up that baptismal. And I went to people, the church elders, and I told them I'd even pay for it. Have these guys over, because if they just hear the epistle, John Ball, that could get out of balance. And I want them to hear from other people. It never happened. We've had, I would dare bet you, at least, the last 5 years, probably 8 or 10 men and their families. And some of these guys have never been in church before in their life. They've just left because nobody has, it just doesn't happen, Rex. It just doesn't.
When men find value and they find challenge, you cannot run them away. When a man is coming and he is finding value, okay, and he is being challenged. If I called you to a challenge right now, you would do everything in your willpower to make sure it happens.
Can you give me an example of that?
If I said next week we are going to this is what we're going to look at, okay, and say John 5, all right, and I need you to read the first 5 verses, all right, you're going to probably go home and read it, all right. Most guys will do it when you call them to a challenge.
Oh, I agree with that.
But for them just to do it, they won't do it. When you say, guys, as a father, okay, I want you to do this week. I want you to tell your kids something that you love about your kid. All right. Next week, I want you to come in and tell me how your kid responded.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about the church, how to get them embrace a men's ministry is what I'm saying.
So John, you've asked a question that really demands an entire session.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just because I typed down your question.
Okay.
I saved it in there. We're gonna, because that really, honestly, is the question of questions. So,
well, like I said, and you can be thinking about it is when a guy finds value and you challenge him, he will not, you cannot run him away.
Well, I have no problem giving to my house. If I say, hey guys, we're going to have a barbecue at the house, or we're going to just get together and beef over some of the adventure and wild heart, I'll have them all here. But when it comes to church, well, they'll come, but after a while, they just feel like they're like I felt before I knew church.
Right. But well, and I hate to say this. I hate to say it is, you're the example of church.
Right. Oh, I know that. Yeah. Okay.
So if you're not walking up there and you're not telling your pastor, I'm gonna pray for you. You taking guys with you where they hear that. The church turnaround starts with you.
Yeah.
Hey, John, one of the things that we do with our ministry, and Kevin Brewer's case in point, is when guys come into our groups, we say, hey, in 3 years, we're going to be together 3 years, but at the end of that time, we're through all 90 of our meetings. We want you to start a group with another guy. And Kevin actually is one of those guys. And so there's a challenge put out there to where your little group of 10 multiplies off and becomes 2 or 3 groups after that. So that's the challenge that Rex is talking about. So you're not meeting just for the sake of meeting, but you're putting something out there to the guys going, listen, man, there's going to be a butt pucker moment in 3 years where we're going to want you to launch a team. In fact, Kevin's running a group with a guy who barely even came to church before he was in our ministry. And now he's helping Kevin. Kevin's been a believer and solid forever, but this guy's like totally engaged. It's miraculous because of the challenge component.
I never do a group. Hear me, okay? I never do a group where if I'm doing a 6-week group, all right, week 5, I say, I want you to start praying because next week is going to end this one. I want you to start praying which one of you is going to lead the next group.
Yeah.
I never. When I did boot camp for 24 weeks, we started 4 groups out of boot camp, and I sent guys with guys, okay? And I had one guy look at me, okay? This is so serious. He looked at me and he said, you have nobody left. And I said, I don't need anybody left. I'm going to start over, okay? You know, remember I told you never do ministry alone? Tomorrow morning, we're getting up 6 o'clock. We're going to pull chairs up in a McDonald's parking lot. It's what you do. So,
Hey, Rex, thanks so much. And John, that's a great question.
Yep.
And we're going to definitely answer that some more. But hey, guys, thanks for coming online. Again, this is for any guy who's running a small group who's running a men's ministry. Like I think John mentioned Wild at Heart, whether you're running a men and women ministry, whether you're doing whatever you're doing, we don't care. We just want to partner together with you guys. So thanks a lot, guys. Let me pray for you. We'll get you out of here. I've got a guy waiting in the waiting room for me. Father, thanks for this time. Thanks for Rex and his just his passion to help men and his skills and gifts. I pray that you'd help us to answer these questions that we're wrestling with in ministry, whether it be from how do we get our church involved, or maybe it's just how do I keep that loudmouth in my small group quiet? So many different questions. So God, I pray that you would go with us and protect us and be with our churches and our pastors in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Hey guys, thanks so much, you guys. See you next Tuesday.
See ya.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Have a
Thanks,
good one.
Rex.
Thanks,
You guys.
Rex.
See you, Jim.
See you guys. Thank you.